Well guys, winter is upon us. And as the cold is sinking in, currently it's a really beautiful day. It's feeling like it's in the 40s, 30s, 40s, I would assume. It's December 26th and it's nice and warm. But there is still snow on the ground, and in a couple days, knowing Pennsylvania, we'll get some more snow and it'll be back down to the 20s. So I want to talk to you guys a bit about how you can prepare your chicken coops for winter, what to do with birds and livestock in the winter. So let's jump into this video and I can show you what we got going on here in our chicken coop, and I can show you guys what we do for winter. So this is probably the coolest part. We have a line coming from our furnace to our house, and it always heats the ground. So if there's a chance that your birds can get grass, they don't really like the snow, at least mine don't. But if there's any chance that they can get some grass, these birds sure do like it. So I try to let them out on this patch of grass whenever it thaws up and the snow melts over it, and they really enjoy it. I throw some scratch feed out, some sunflower seeds, and they really enjoy themselves. So we're gonna walk into my chicken coop here. Now, I don't do a lot, but I do enough to the point where it keeps them decently warm. Chickens are very capable of keeping themselves warm, so before you guys go in and thinking that you need to put heat lamps in your coop, you don't. You do not have to do that at all. Chickens are very, very capable of warming themselves. That's why chickens molt every year. They get all those new feathers in for a reason, so they can stay warm, and they lose all those feathers in the spring so they can keep cool in the summer. Chickens are fully capable of doing it themselves. That's how God created them. So it's entirely up to you if you want to put heat lamps in your pens, but it is not necessary. So what I do for my chickens, I'm currently feeding them because they were all out. What I do for my chickens is I just pile up a bunch of bedding and I add some layers of insulation just so the cracks in the barn, there's no air getting through. Put some hay on the ground, and depending upon the temperatures, usually the birds are pretty good. One year we had like -30s, and that was one time I had to put a heater in here because it was just way too cold. But I put plastic bags all over the wall. So these are our feed bags that we had used up, and they just, weren't being used anymore. And so the entire wall is completely insulated. It's got blue insulation behind it, and then it also has plastic over it, some wood. But with this, you can do a lot of different things with this. I take this, and this is literally just feed bags, but if you didn't cut them in half and you just leave the pocket, you could even stick some hay down there if you wanted to. You could pin that up against the wall, just like I did, and then right there is another wall of insulation for you. Another thing, put hay down. My coop is not the cleanest right now. I really need to clean it up, but get yourself some straw. We've got plenty of it in the loft, and I just take my straw, take it into the chicken coop, and I just mess that around. And the birds will move it around for me for the most part, but I just lay this around and they're good. They stay warm. And yeah, that's about it. A thing you can do for warmth and feed is cracked corn. There's something about cracked corn. I'll have to do the research for it. But you can do the research yourself. But cracked corn internally heats them. So while we're externally heating them with the insulated walls and the hay on the ground, internally you can give them some cracked corn and it'll heat their inside of their body. And I don't fully know why that is, but it is something you can do, and that's something I've heard that works for the most part. At Tractor Supply, we go through a lot of cracked corn this time of year, not just for deer, but for chicken keeping as well. So, as for waterers, if you guys know anything about the cold, stuff freezes, and waterers are something that we definitely need for our birds. So, go to your local feed store. Tractor Supply has these. I prefer these. They're the nipple waterers, the peckers. So you can go and peck it, and then it's easy access. And you can just put the lid on top, dump the fresh water in there, and it plugs in electronically through the extension cord into the outlet Another heated water setup is those big, tall 3-gallon, 3.5-gallon waters, which I'm trying to find here. I don't know if we have one. Yes, we do. Another one looks like this. The base is heated, so this plugs in right here. Now, the thing that I don't like about these hold a lot of water, more water than the other water. But the thing I don't like about this is underneath is your access point. See this cap right here? That's where your water is going to go. So what you have to do every time to change the water is going to be flipping over the water, undoing the cap, and pouring it in the hole, or it's going to be rotating the bottom and taking the whole thing apart like a lot of the other waters. But the problem with these waters, they're a lot more awkward to just take apart. So that's why they have the access point at the bottom of the water jug. But in my opinion, it's harder to get to that way than it is to take the whole thing apart. The whole process is really messy. I don't prefer it. So keep all that in mind. As for food, like I said, the only food you can give them is the cracked corn. Keep feeding them what you're feeding them. Add some cracked corn as a, supplemental. I think birds even like it if it's not supplemental. In the winter, I try to give out a lot of treats just to keep up with their foraging, because as you know, in winter, there's no bugs and they can't forage as well as they would be able to in the spring and summer. So I like to throw out a lot of sunflower seeds. Black oil sunflower seeds are great for chickens in the winter. Scratch feed. You can get mealworms. This year for the birds, I got them a flock block, and they're really chowing down on that. They really enjoy it, and that'll last them for a little bit if I just leave it there. So that was a good investment. I'm really happy I did that. As for eggs, if it gets to a point where it's too cold, make sure you're collecting your eggs frequently so they don't crack and break and freeze. That's happened a time or two to us, and it's just one of those things where it's not fun to go out to your nesting box and pick up some frozen eggs that have just expanded and blown up all over the place because it was just too cold. So we're coming out here to the pigeon coop just because I want to show you an option of how you can heat your birds. Now, this is what I'm doing for the pigeons because I have some pigeons out here who are not the best in... Come here, Betty. Betty White doesn't want to be held, but I have two fantails out here, and they're not the best. This is Betty White here, and they're not the best in this winter climate. They can handle it, but I like to give them the option of heat because they just get a little bit more cold than the other birds. But down here I have this heat plate, and you can see it right here. I think this is a heat plate. It's completely safe. It's on heater mode, so the heat is just coming out at the birds, and they can come in here if they want. If they don't want, they can come out here and they can roost. They have the option. That's one thing you want to have for your birds. Make sure your birds can get away from the heat. If it's something that they aren't interested in, always have the option for them to escape. If it's too hot, they need to be able to get out and get away from that. But heat plates are totally safe. Well, not totally. I mean, something can always go wrong. But they're a lot more safe than heat lamps. And that's one thing that a lot of people will do in the winter is put heat lamps in there. And that's how a lot of fires start in chicken coops. And that's how a lot of chicken keepers will lose their birds. So be mindful. Chickens don't need heat, but if you want to, heat plates are a really good option. But I think that's everything for this video. If you guys have any questions, make sure to leave it in the comments section below, and I will make sure to get back to them as soon as I can. But I hope you guys learned something while you're here, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.